Hi, I'm Pip Bricher from the Southern Ocean Observing System, and I'm here to talk to you about who's going where and how, what they're doing when they get there, and specifically about an integrated database we're pulling together for polar research, logistics and infrastructures. I'm talking to you today on behalf of my colleagues at SOOS and also my colleagues at the European Polar Board and at Blue Lobster. And we want to start by talking about why we even bother to do this. Why pull all of this information into one place to make it easier to find? Well, simply polar regions, they're big, they're remote, they're expensive to work in, and the duplication involved in not sharing that information is hugely wasteful, especially in a carbon limited world and in a world where research funding is not unlimited either. And what we found is that to date, the logistics information that's put out by various research programs is often treated as secret squirrel business. If you're not familiar with 1960s and 1990s American cartoons, secret squirrel is a spy. Everything happens on a need-to-know basis. And what we're finding is that if you're an insider in a particular program, you can find out about who's going where and when and how to tag along. And if you're not an insider for that program, that information is often very hard to track down. So we're doing what we can to fix that. Within SOOS, we have the database of upcoming expeditions to the Southern Ocean, which contains information on expeditions and on research projects that have a field component. The European Polar Board has maintained a database of infrastructure around stations, aircraft and vessels, and several of our partners have been providing information into both of those databases. And we're trying to pull that into a single manageable entity. And here's what it looks like so far. Polardex is the working title. We have map-based interfaces for research stations and for expeditions, and you can flip between the Antarctic and Arctic. And then we have table-based views for those expeditions and projects and stations, but also for vessels and aircraft. And if you click on any individual record in a map or a table, it will take you through to the full details of that piece of infrastructure. And on the back end where we can get to, we can also do bulk uploads, approve and edit existing records, and add new information in that way. There's obviously some pretty big challenges involved in pulling that together. And the biggest one is that unlike metadata about databases, there isn't a currently agreed, or there aren't several currently agreed standards for what this information should look like. So we're trying to align database structures across some really quite different databases. We're trying to align the ontologies and the dictionaries. And that's both a machine-to-machine readable process, but also about aligning human understandings of what these databases hold. Obviously, we have an ongoing issue of populating and maintaining the currency of that database, which is a task that will be shared across all of the partner organisations. And we will need to ensure we have community buy-in, both from the users. This database is pointless if it's not actually useful to the broader research community, and also to the information providers who are already sharing information and those we hope to bring on board. And all of that is happening against the background of some really different structures and organisations of the kinds of groups that are working in the Arctic and Antarctic. And we're talking about some wildly different infrastructure types. A field trip is different to a 5-year research program. A research station has very different sort of features about it than, say, an aircraft does. So trying to pull that into some sort of cohesive whole is going to be an ongoing challenge. So things to watch out for in the future. We will be launching this database very soon. We're just ironing out bugs at the moment. And then we will be working to improve the functionality as we go along, adding new tools, making things work more smoothly for you. And we'll be adding new data feeds. For example, we have approval from the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators to include information about where tourist ships in the Southern Ocean will be heading. And that would obviously be a significant potential new source of logistics support at that end of the world. And along the way, we will be working with groups like the Polar Observing Assets Working Group and others to make sure that we are slowly, iteratively getting more and more alike and more standardised in our database structures. Thank you very much for your time, and please ask me any questions.